So dynamic content for Elementor's tokens are incredibly powerful, but they can also be quite overwhelming when you start working with them. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick start guide to show you how to get up and running, to add levels of personalization and some of the other things you can do with these tokens. So let's just jump over, take a look at a couple of simple examples, then I'm going to show you how to get started creating them, and also I'll put links to the documentation so you can find out much more than what I can cover in this video there. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what I'm talking about. So if we take a look at this homepage on our site, you can see there's a certain level of personalization. It says, hey Paul, are you ready to find your new home? And it says, ready to get started, Paul. And that's great if you're logged in. But what happens if you're not logged in? Well, this is where you can use some of the more advanced powers inside the tokens feature in dynamic content for Elementor. And again, this is something that I'm going to show you. So let's first of all start off with this really simple, straightforward example, see how you can start to work with it for yourself. Okay, so this is the homepage and I've stripped out all the tokens so we can go ahead and take a look at rebuilding those features for ourselves. So first of all, let's focus on the button to get the kind of personalization inside there. So let's just select the button. So we've got get started, which is the text for our button, but we want to add some personalization. So let's start by clicking on that dynamic tags option. Inside there, you can see all the different options we have available, and there are lots depending upon the kinds of tools that you have installed. If we scroll right the way down, you can see we've got the dynamic content for Elementor section, and there are various different features inside here. You may see different ones depending upon what you have enabled and disabled as part of your DC for E setup. What we're interested in though is the tokens feature. If we click to open that up, you can see we now need to click on the little wrench icon to open up all the different features that are available. So inside here, we can now go ahead and drop in the token or tokens to build up what we want. Now, what exactly is a token? What's it made up of and how do you get started using it? Well, let's take a look at a simple example of a token. Now, building your tokens, they follow some simple rules and guides. They always open up with an opening square bracket and they always close with a closing square bracket. Whatever in between is the actual token information itself. Now, building your token, once you go inside that square bracket, you start off with where the data is going to be pulled from. For example, if you want to grab some user data, you will always put inside that opening square bracket the word user, all in lowercase. This then says that the data is going to come from the user's data. For example, if you wanted to use the author and use author information, for example, the display name, number of posts and so on, you'd open it up inside that square bracket with author. You kind of get the picture with how it works. Then you put a full colon, and then you put what data you actually want to reference. So going back to our user, you can see we can use first underscore name, or we could use last underscore name, email, nice name, any of the kind of information that's accessible as part of that user information. So you kind of get the picture in the way these work. And that's the basics, but you can go way beyond that, and we'll come back to some more advanced options and some examples a little later. So for example now, we've got this user first name, and that's what we want to use. So let's simply grab this from the documentation for ease. We'll just copy that from there, and we'll head back over into our site. So now what we need to do is drop that token inside there. And you can see now that puts in the username. In this example, my first name, because I'm the one that's logged in, but anybody that's logged in will have this information displayed. If they're not logged in, it won't show anything, but we can deal with that in a moment. So that's how easy it is. We can then go into the advanced option, which we have as part of the normal dynamic tags as part of Elementor, and we can say whatever we want. We can put anything to precede this data, anything after it, and we can, if we want, to put a fallback inside there. So we'll just put a before message, and then we'll put a question mark after. And there we go. You can see we've now customized this button. Really easy to do. If we go back to the settings, you can see if we wanted to add something else inside there. For example, we may want to put the last name in as well. Well, we'll do the same thing. We'll just copy and paste that inside there, but we'll change it from first name, and we'll change this to last name. So now you can see we can combine the two of those to create the full username. If you want to put email addresses, those kinds of things, you could do that as well. So there's a simple example of how we can get started with that side of things. Pretty cool, really basic though. Let's take another example now where we can expand upon that whole token setup. For this example, let's go ahead and change this opening section, the main title at the top, to make it a little bit more unique, but also give us some kind of checking that if there isn't a value there, it would be replaced by something else. If a user's not logged in, or they haven't set their first name or something like that, we want to be able to put something in there so it doesn't just kind of have this blank area. So how do we do that? Let me just show you. We'll go ahead and we'll select the heading. We'll click on our dynamic tags one more time and we'll scroll down until we get to our tokens option. We'll open this up. We'll click one more time to open up the settings and we'll pop in the same information. So, Paul, blah, 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 blah. So now we've dropped the token inside there. We can now go ahead and set any advanced features that we want. So we want to put in a little message afterwards. So we can go to advanced and we'll just come into after and we'll drop our little message in. So it said, Paul, are you ready to find your new home? We've personalized this. Now we could use the fallback option, but there's a much more powerful way of doing this. Let's go back to our settings. And what we can do is we can expand this token and you can make it more comprehensive. Let's switch back over to the documentation and let me show you what we're going to do. Now we can use an incredibly powerful feature that's part of dynamic content for Elementor's token system, and that is the trim function. The trim allows us to do a lot of different things. In this example, we want to check to see if something exists, and if it doesn't exist, we want to replace it with something else. For example, if their first name isn't actually inserted into their profile, there's nothing inside there, we don't want to have a blank entry. We want to replace it with, in this example, we'll do something like guest. You can see if we take a look, we've got this feature. We use the pipe, the trim, the question mark, and what we want to replace it with. Might sound confusing, but let me just show you how this works in a real world example. So if we take a look, there's our token. We've already broken down how this works. So all we need to do now is come after the name and before the actual closing square bracket, we're going to put the pipe symbol in. Once we've done that, we can now put the word trim and a question mark. And then we can say what we want to replace it with. For this example, we're going to say guest. So what we're saying now is check username, first name. If it doesn't exist, trim it and change it to guest. So you can see, because I have my username and I'm logged in, it says, Paul, are you ready to find? Let's update this. So let's open up an incognito window. And as you can see, because I'm not logged in, we now get guest. Are you ready to find your new home? You can also see ready to get started. We didn't set anything inside there, so now we don't have that kind of fallback option, but we could easily go back and retrofit it. And this is kind of where you can really start to power up what you can do with these tokens. This is a really simple example. You can stack more and more conditions inside there to create really powerful tokens to do so much more. But you may be thinking, Paul, I don't want to remember all of these different short codes and all these different things. And it's a good job they've actually created a way to bypass having to remember all those. Let's go ahead and just jump back into our setup. We'll jump back into Elementor, we'll open up the token and we'll click to open up the settings. You'll see there's a button we didn't take a look at earlier, and that's called Wizard Mode. We can open that up, and that now opens up an easier way of creating these different dynamic tags. So you can see we've got a range of different icons. We can go ahead and grab different objects. So the post, users, tags, all those kinds of things. Even if you have Jet Engine installed, ACF, pods, any of those kinds of things, you can reference their dynamic data as well. And Jet Engine is something that's recently been added in to being supported by dynamic content for Elementor. So if you're a Jet Engine user and you still want to use the ability to do all these great things you can do with DC for E, you can now do that with Jet Engine as well. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's take a look at using the same example. We're going to go to user because we want to grab some user data. Our field, we can go ahead and start typing in. So let's just type name in, for example. And then anything that has name inside there is now available to us. So first name, last name, nice name, those kinds of things. So we'll grab the first name again. You can see that now shows us in the preview exactly what information has been pulled in because I'm the logged in user. We'll also notice we have the trim function underneath. So we can still leverage that trim feature. We're going to just put in the word trim, then the question mark again, and we're just going to put in guest. So everything has now been set up. We can go ahead, show the code if we want to, so we can see exactly what code is being generated for this. So you could easily just grab this code from there and use that anywhere else. And it's just a great way to quickly see exactly what code's being generated. So if you wanted to use it in other parts of your site, you can simply grab that code and do what you want. Disable that, and we go back to what we had, which is the actual output information. So now all we need to do is close that down, update our page, and we are pretty much good to go. And we can do the same thing with our button. We can select our button. We can open up our token. Where we've got this information, we can just take that from there, go into the wizard mode, go into user. Inside there, we're going to do name. So we grab their first name. Now you'll notice we don't get the ability to go ahead and add extra names inside here. That's probably one of the little limitations we have, but we could easily copy the code and amend the code if we needed to. But like I say, this just makes it easy. It's kind of a beginner's way of doing a lot of this. We can also set the source. So if you wanted to reference a specific user, specific post, or specific information, you could do that inside here. So you can see if I start to search for my username, you can see that pulls up my user information, so we could have that information being the source info for this. But for this example, we don't want to. We're going to leave it as it is. Our filters are still inside here as well. So again, we can do the same thing. So we can do trim, question mark, guest. And then if we're not logged in, it will work in the same way. So all those same options are available inside there. Now if we click on update to save this page, we've now done basically the same thing without having to code anything ourselves. So you can use that wizard to just help you get started and kind of see the kinds of things you can do. So let's just jump back in and take a look at some of the other options that are available inside here. So we've already seen the user and the user information you can grab from there, but there's a lot more than that. If you're using posts, for example, you can grab any meta field. So we can say, like, for example, title. And you can see site post title, content, title for the post title itself. If you wanted to use this in a dynamic template, you could reference this information, use the tokens inside there as well, and get really creative in using all this information. Now you may be thinking, well, surely Elementor Pro can do pretty much all this with its dynamic tags. It can do a lot of it, but it can't do everything. The tokens feature adds in an awful lot more. But you can use dynamic content for Elementor without using Elementor Pro. So you could use it to either replace it when it comes to dynamic content, or you can use it to add on to what's already there if you like to use that already included features that are part of the dynamic tags with Elementor Pro. So you have the best of both worlds going on. So you can see we can grab that information. We can use it in templates, pages, posts, anywhere we kind of want to use it. We've got terms, we've got options, we've got the WP query. So if you wanted to use the WordPress query feature, you can do that. Now, if you'd like me to show you a video in more detail covering some more advanced features with the tokens that's part of dynamic content for Elementor, including things like the WordPress query and that, let me know in the comment section below and I'll take a look at creating a more comprehensive and deeper kind of dive into what you can do with the tokens. You can even use things like dates. But the cool thing about using dates or anything like that is you can actually start to do calculations and things with it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's just put in, you can see today's date is what it's showing on there. But let's just put in today plus 1 month. Now you can see ready to get started May 10th, 2022. 1 month from today. Or you could say 1 week. You can see April the 17th. So you can use these calculations to do all manner of different things. And that's just really a simple example. You can even go ahead and set the date format that you want. You can use the trim function. Again, you've got the show code, return as data, all the same options are inside here. So you can really get stuck into the kinds of things you could do. And again, this is probably beyond what I need to cover in this. This is just a kind of starter video to show you. But hopefully what you can see is it's incredibly powerful. And again, if you want me to cover things like this in more detail, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know the kinds of things you'd like me to cover about the tokens. If you've got specific features you'd like me to cover, let me know so I can do a little bit of research and kind of come back with a more comprehensive video tutorial for you. Okay, so pretty cool we can do those kinds of calculations as well. We've also got system things inside here as well. So you can see we can do a lot more when it comes to this. So this allows you to grab source information from the server, from using get. So if you're using get or post to transfer information via the URL, you can actually use this to grab that data and do things with it. And I think that's part of what the tokens opens up. It allows you to grab data from so many different places, from forms, those kinds of things, and do things with it. So let me show you an example of how we can use this inside forms. Now, this is a really simple example and you could go wild with the kinds of things you can do here. And this is in conjunction with some of the other features that you have as part of dynamic content for Elementor, the other form elements that they open up for you. So let's take a look at this simple form example. You can see currently I have survey selected as a service. And underneath we've got a cost of £100. That's because the survey is selected. However, let's just say they don't want a survey, they want an assessment instead. Well, we can click on that, and that now has been updated dynamically. This is all using those tokens as part of a form inside Elementor. And there's even more things we can do with this, which I'll show you in a moment. But let me just show you how you could go about creating something like this, and just some of the things you can do using these tokens alongside various other features. Okay, so I've hopped back into Elementor. I've stripped out the extra bits and pieces of the form so I can show you how to recreate this for yourself. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and add a new item inside here. And this is where we're going to allow people to choose what service they want and apply the price to that specific service. To do that, we're going to be using a select option. So we're going to come into text, we're going to come down, we choose the option for select. You could use radio or other options, but select is a really good example for us. Label, doesn't really matter, we're not going to put anything on there, but we're just going to put this and call this service. We'll hop over to advanced and we'll give this an ID of service as well, because it just makes the whole process of connecting and linking things up a little later a bit more logical. So go back to content, and now we need to put in our options. So what we're going to do is we're going to say service. We'll put the pipe symbol, and then we're going to put the value. So we're going to say 100. Now, the pipe is the separator between what people will see, in this example, service, that'll be in the drop down, and what comes after the pipe is the actual numeric value associated with it. So we can add another one in now. We can say assessment. We'll give this a value after that pipe of 500 in this example. And we'll just add another one in as well, and we'll just call this survey. And we'll set the value inside there. So now we've created 3 select values and applied a numeric value to them. So the next thing we need to do now is go ahead and use this information to output the relevant information onto the screen for the end user when they make these selections. So we'll add another item. We're going to change the type to another feature that's part of dynamic content for Elementor, and that's the amount field type. We'll select that. We're going to give this a name. We're going to call this service cost. We can set this as required, whatever we want to on there, but what we're interested in is the expression. Now, the expression is where we can use our new tokens. As always, you can see this gives us that normal standard way of building our tokens. We'll open our square bracket. We'll use the delimiter of form this time because we want to grab a form field on this particular page. We'll put our colon, and we now need to use the name of the field that we want to reference. So if we come back to our service, inside there under advanced, there's the ID, the unique identifying for that particular form field. We'll go back out of there into our service cost, and we'll just put in service. Again, making sure that you have the correct spelling and the correct format. So in other words, lowercase if you're using lowercase, capitalize if you're using capitalize, and so on. So now we've set things up inside there to reference it. So now we can go ahead and put any text before or text after if we want to put that inside there. So we could just say cost, and we can put a pound sign in if we wanted to as well, whatever we kind of want to do there. You can hide the amount, you can round the results, you can format the number, you can set this to either input or change, and each of those has different ways of working. You can see input will update on every key pressed, change only when things have moved away and blurred and so on. So it's up to you how you want to set these up. You can configure it any way you want to. And again, you can apply conditional logic to this, all those kinds of things. We'll say update on there. We'll just jump back over now to our test page, and you can see there's our services. So we'll just click. You can click service, which is £100, assessment, which is £500, or survey, which is £350. So really easy, but we can do more. Let's just go back. What we're going to do now is we're going to say that we want to give people the option to go ahead and multi-select the actual values. So we'll just set this to be a multiple selection option. You'll see our select field now changes slightly. We'll update this. We'll hop back over. And you can see we no longer have that option for just a single entry, but we can now multi-select. So we may say we want a service. You can see the price shows up. We can say survey, for example. But let's just say we wanted a survey and service. We can click. We can hold the command or control key down, and you can see we can now select the both of them, and that comes back now with a value of £450. If we want to add in the assessment to have everything, £950. It's calculating that in the background for us automatically. But you can still do more. You don't need to limit yourself to just having one simple setup with one simple expression. Let's go into our service costs, for example, and let's just do something silly. Let's just say we're going to multiply that by 2. So we'll just put the multiplication symbol, which is the little star, and 2. So now what we're saying is, whatever value is inside that first token, multiply it by 2. So we know that the service is £100. Let's update our page. We'll hop back over, refresh to make sure everything's in place. Choose service, now it's £250. Choose assessment, it's 1,000 instead of 500. Survey, 700. And again, we can multi-select these, and you can see now 1,900. Now you can go much further than this, and let me just give you another example. So let's just remove that from there, and we'll just set it back now so those values are just standardized. Let's come back out. Let's create another item, and inside here we're going to give people the ability to choose the number of days they want to work with us. So we'll set a number field, we'll give it a name, number of days, go to placeholder as well so we can see what they're doing. You can see we can set a minimum value of 1 and we'll say a maximum value of 10, for example. They can't work for us more than 10 days. We can go into advanced and we'll just call this days. Reposition that. So now it makes a bit more sense. So now we have the number of days they want to work with us, the service or services they want, and then we need to calculate things. So let's go back and open that up. Okay, so now let's just amend our expression. So what we need to do, like we did before, is put the multiplied in. And now we're going to put in the form field for the number of days. So again, we're going to open up our square brackets, put form, full colon, because we're referencing a form field, and we're just going to put days in, which is the ID that we've given that particular field. So now what we're going to do is we've got a calculation that says the service they choose, or services, multiplied by the number of days they want to use us. So let's just update this, hop over into our page, choose our number of days. We're going to set inside here, we'll say 5 days, and we'll choose the service, which you know is £100. You can see now, 5 days, £500. 6 days, £600. We also want the survey, £2,700. And if we want the assessment as well, 5,700. So this is using the expression options alongside the tokens that are part of dynamic content for Elementor. And this is really just scratching the surface of what you could do with this. If you wanted to create a comprehensive quote form for your web design business, you could create that all using tokens, expressions, form builder, those kinds of things from dynamic content for Elementor. So this is just getting you started, from taking you from the basics of what exactly is a token, how to get started using it, right the way up to creating more comprehensive ones. But there's so much further you could go with this. But as always, let me know in the comment section if you want me to cover specific features of this particular feature inside dynamic content for Elementor. Give me some examples of what you'd like me to cover, and I'll take a look for you. As always, all the applicable links for everything I've covered are in the description below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.